The Exile and the Silence. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Confederation stretched across 3 kilometers of polished stone and crystalline architecture. Today it held representatives from 47 species, and the air hummed with tension. Ambassador Chen Wei stood alone at the central platform, surrounded by a sea of hostile faces. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few existed as pure energy contained in shimmering fields. All of them were united in one thing: they wanted humanity gone. The speaker, a towering being called Vorith with skin like burnished copper, raised 6 of his arms for silence. His voice echoed through the chamber without need for amplification. The vote has concluded. By unanimous decision of all member species, humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Confederation. You have brought violence, chaos, and unpredictability to our peaceful union. You will depart within 10 rotations to the void sectors beyond the galactic rim. No contact will be permitted. No appeals will be heard. Chen Wei felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders. She had argued for months, pleading their case, explaining that the incident on Talvex Prime had been a misunderstanding. A human security team had responded to what they perceived as a threat against Confederation dignitaries. They had acted to protect, not to harm. But 3 Talvexian nobles had died in the confrontation, and no amount of explanation could undo that tragedy. She looked across the assembled species and saw fear in their eyes more than anger. Humans were young, barely 2 centuries into spacefaring civilization. They moved too fast, felt too intensely, and reacted with what other species considered reckless passion. The Confederation had existed for 12,000 years on principles of careful deliberation and measured response. Humanity did not fit that mold. Chen Wei bowed her head in acceptance. We will go. But understand this. We acted to protect your people, not harm them. History will remember what happened here today. She turned and walked from the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. 10 rotations later, the human fleet gathered at the edge of Confederation space. 300 ships carried the entire human presence in the galaxy. 2 million people, along with everything they had built in 2 centuries of stellar expansion. Families crowded into cargo holds. Scientists packed their laboratories into storage containers. Soldiers stood at attention on transport decks, uncertain if they would ever fight again or simply fade into the darkness. Admiral Marcus Stone commanded the exodus from the flagship Resilience. He was 60 years old with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much loss. He opened a channel to all ships. This is not the end. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. We will survive this too. The void sectors may be empty, but we will make them home. We will endure. The fleet activated their jump drives and vanished into the unknown. The void sectors earned their name honestly. This region of space sat between galactic arms, a vast emptiness where stars were scattered and resources were scarce. Old trade routes had once passed through here millennia ago, but they had been abandoned when better paths were discovered. Now only debris remained, broken stations, derelict ships, and the occasional automated beacon still broadcasting to no one. The first year was the hardest. Human ships drifted through the void, rationing supplies and searching desperately for anything useful. Children cried from hunger. Adults worked 20-hour shifts trying to keep life support functioning. 3 ships were lost to system failures, their crews dying in the cold darkness before rescue could arrive. But humans had always been survivors. They found an abandoned Confederation outpost orbiting a dying red dwarf. The station was old, its systems dead for centuries, but the structure remained intact. Engineer teams led by Dr. Sarah Okafor began the dangerous work of bringing it back to life. They salvaged power cores from derelict ships. They jury-rigged atmospheric processors using parts that were never designed to work together. Slowly, incredibly, the station began to function again. More discoveries followed. The void sectors were not as empty as the Confederation believed. Ancient species had lived here once, leaving behind technology far more advanced than anything the current galactic civilization possessed. Humans found AI cores that could process information at quantum speeds. They discovered manufacturing systems that could build complex machinery from raw materials with minimal input. They uncovered star charts showing resource deposits that scanners had missed. The Confederation had exiled humanity to die. Instead, humans found treasure. 5 years after the exile, the human population had grown to 3 million through births and improved conditions. The central station, now called Haven, had expanded into a small city floating in space. Hydroponic gardens provided food. Refineries processed minerals from captured asteroids. Fabrication facilities produced everything from medical supplies to starship components. But Admiral Stone understood that survival alone was not enough. Humanity needed purpose. They needed to prove that their exile had been unjust. He gathered his senior officers in the command center one evening and laid out a vision that would change everything. "We cannot return to the Confederation," Stone said, studying the faces of the men and women who had kept humanity alive. "They have made that clear. But we can still serve the galaxy. We can watch. We can listen. We can prevent the tragedies that our presence supposedly caused." Captain Yuki Tanaka, head of intelligence operations, leaned forward. "You want to build a spy network throughout Confederation space, without them knowing?" Stone nodded. "More than spies. We become guardians. We monitor conflicts before they escalate. We provide information to prevent wars. We work in the shadows to keep the peace. The Confederation feared our passion and our quick reactions. We will show them that same passion can be used to protect rather than destroy." The idea spread through Haven like wildfire. Humans had always needed purpose, and now they had found it. Within weeks, volunteers were training for deep cover missions. Engineers developed stealth ships that could slip past Confederation sensors. Programmers created AI systems that could infiltrate galactic networks and gather intelligence without leaving traces. The Silent Council was born. Dr. Okafor designed the technology that made it possible. Human ships now carried sensor arrays that could detect quantum communications across light years. AI systems processed billions of data streams simultaneously, identifying patterns that suggested brewing conflicts. Translator programs decoded every major language in the galaxy, allowing human analysts to understand diplomatic exchanges, military communications, and civilian concerns. Captain Tanaka trained the first field operatives. These men and women would live among Confederation species, adopting their customs and appearances through advanced holographic disguises. They would not spy for advantage but watch for danger. Their mission was to identify threats to peace and find ways to neutralize them before violence erupted. The first test came in the 10th year of exile. Human intelligence detected unusual military movements between the Kelvin Hives and the Dreth Collective. Both species occupied adjacent sectors and had maintained cold hostility for generations. Now their fleets were mobilizing. Border incidents were increasing. Propaganda networks were stoking hatred on both sides. Human analysts dug deeper and discovered the truth. A third party, a criminal syndicate called the Ash Traders, was manipulating both sides. They had arranged the border incidents. They had bribed officials to spread inflammatory messages. They wanted war because war meant profits from weapons sales and salvaged materials. The Silent Council could not reveal themselves, but they could act. Anonymous data packets arrived simultaneously in Kelvin and Dreth intelligence networks. The information exposed the Ash Trader manipulation with undeniable proof: financial records, communication logs, and evidence of bribed officials. Both species pulled back from the brink, shocked to discover they had been played against each other. 3 million lives were saved. The Kelvin-Dreth War never happened. And no one knew that exiled humans were responsible. Over the next decades, the pattern repeated hundreds of times. Human operatives prevented assassinations that would have triggered succession crises. They exposed corrupt politicians who were driving their worlds toward civil war. They intercepted weapons shipments meant for terrorist organizations. They even saved a Confederation colony from a plague by anonymously providing the cure that human scientists had developed. The Silent Council never sought recognition or reward. They worked in absolute secrecy, leaving no trace of their involvement. To the galaxy, it seemed as if fortune simply favored peace. Conflicts resolved themselves through lucky coincidences. Evidence of wrongdoing appeared at exactly the right moment. Disasters were averted by inexplicable good timing. Humanity had become the galaxy's invisible guardians. Admiral Stone died in his sleep at age 93, surrounded by grandchildren who had been born in Haven and knew no other home. His funeral drew thousands. His successor, Admiral Kenji Nakamura, stood before the memorial statue and made a promise. "We will continue the work. We will protect this galaxy even though it cast us out. Not because they deserve it, but because protecting others is what makes us human." By the 50th year of exile, the Silent Council operated throughout Confederation space. Over 2,000 human agents lived undercover among 47 species. AI systems monitored communications across 10,000 worlds. A fleet of stealth ships patrolled the shadows, ready to intervene when necessary. The human population in the void sectors had grown to 15 million, living in dozens of stations and settlements built from salvaged technology and pure determination. The Confederation remained ignorant of humanity's continued existence. Official records stated that the exiled humans had perished in the void sectors decades ago. A few historians occasionally published papers wondering what had become of the passionate young species, but most citizens had forgotten entirely. Humanity was a cautionary tale, a reminder of why the Confederation's careful approach to galactic affairs was necessary. But in the shadows, humans were everywhere. They listened to every whisper. They watched every threat. They had transformed exile into purpose and rejection into resolve. The galaxy was safer because of them, and no one suspected the truth. That was about to change. The Shadow Guardians. Dr. Lena Volkov reviewed the medical data for the third time, hoping she had made an error. She had not. The numbers were clear and terrifying. 3 separate worlds in different sectors of Confederation space were experiencing the same mysterious illness. Victims began with minor fatigue, then progressed to cellular breakdown within weeks. Internal organs failed. Immune systems collapsed. Death followed inevitably, and no known treatment made any difference. She stood in the medical research facility aboard Haven Station and transmitted her findings to the Silent Council Command Center. This was not a natural disease. The pathogen was too perfect, too efficient. Someone had engineered it. Admiral Nakamura called an emergency session within the hour. The council chamber deep inside Haven had been carved from an asteroid and reinforced with salvaged Confederation hull plating. Holographic displays showed real-time data from across the galaxy. 20 senior operatives attended in person while dozens more joined via encrypted channels. Captain Elena Rodriguez, now head of field operations after Tanaka's retirement, presented the situation. We have confirmed cases on Vela, Drathis Minor, and Tarshan. 3 different species, 3 different sectors, no apparent connection. But the disease is identical in all cases. Genetic analysis shows it is artificially created. Someone is testing a biological weapon. How many dead? Nakamura asked quietly. 80,000 so far. The numbers are climbing exponentially. If this spreads to major population centers, we could see billions of casualties within months. The chamber fell silent. The Silent Council had prevented wars, stopped assassinations, and exposed corruption, but they had never faced a threat of this magnitude. This was not politics or military conflict. This was potential extinction. Dr. Volkov spoke up from her station. I have traced the pathogen's genetic structure. It contains markers from technology that does not exist in current Confederation databases. Whoever created this has access to advanced biological engineering far beyond what any known species possesses. Nakamura leaned back in his chair, thinking through the implications. Could this be remnant technology from one of the ancient civilizations? Something discovered and weaponized? Possible, Volkov replied. But there is another explanation. The pathogen is designed to adapt. It learns from each victim and becomes more efficient. That suggests an intelligence guiding its evolution. You are saying this disease is alive, Rodriguez said slowly. Not just a virus but something that thinks. Volkov nodded. I am saying we may be dealing with a species that exists as a pathogen. One that consumes other life forms to survive and propagate. The implications were staggering. Humanity had been exiled for being too aggressive, too dangerous. Now something infinitely more threatening was loose in the galaxy, and the Confederation had no idea. Nakamura made his decision. We need to find the source. Rodriguez, deploy every available agent to those 3 worlds. I want samples, I want data, and I want to know how this pathogen is spreading. Volkov, organize a research team. Use every resource we have. Find me a cure or at least a treatment that can slow this thing down. And sir, what about the Confederation? Rodriguez asked. Should we warn them? Not yet. If we reveal ourselves now, they will panic. They will accuse us of creating the pathogen ourselves. We need proof of what we are dealing with first. Then we can decide how to proceed. Over the following weeks, human agents infiltrated the affected worlds. They posed as medical volunteers, journalists covering the crisis, and even patients seeking treatment. They collected tissue samples, interviewed victims, and tracked the spread of infection. Every piece of data was transmitted back to Haven, where Volkov's team worked around the clock searching for answers. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source. Agent Marcus Chin, working undercover as a cargo hauler on Vela, noticed something strange. Ships that had recently visited a region called the Shroud were showing higher infection rates among their crews. The Shroud was an area of dense nebulae that interfered with sensors and communication. Most captains avoided it, but some used it as a shortcut despite the risks. Chin transmitted his findings to Haven. Within hours, Rodriguez had redirected 3 stealth ships to investigate. What they found confirmed humanity's worst fears. Deep within the shroud, hidden among the swirling gases and electromagnetic interference, was a vast organic structure. It looked like a cross between a ship and a living creature, stretching for kilometers in every direction. Smaller entities, each the size of a fighter craft, moved around it in coordinated patterns. The entire thing pulsed with bioluminescent light, and every scanner reading showed it was alive. The Devourers had been found. Dr. Volkov analyzed the reconnaissance data with growing horror. This is not a ship. This is a hive. A mobile colony that travels through space consuming biological matter. The pathogen we have been tracking is not a weapon. It is their method of preparing food. They soften up prey species from the inside, then harvest the remains. How long have they been here? Nakamura asked. Impossible to say for certain. But based on the hive's size and the complexity of their pathogen, I would estimate they have been operating for at least a decade. Possibly longer. A decade. During that time, the Silent Council had been focused on political conflicts and military threats. They had never imagined something like this existed. The Devourers had been hunting in the shadows, taking victims slowly enough to avoid detection but efficiently enough to spread across multiple worlds. Nakamura stood and addressed the council. We need more information. Rodriguez, I want surveillance teams monitoring that hive constantly. I want to know how many Devourers exist, how they communicate, and how they choose their targets. Volkov, focus your research on finding vulnerabilities. There has to be a way to fight them. But sir, what about the Confederation? An operative asked. How long can we keep this secret? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Dr. Amara Keita worked at the Confederation Medical Institute on the core world of Zenthos. She was Zenthari, a species known for their analytical minds and methodical approach to science. She had been studying the mysterious illness for weeks, frustrated by her lack of progress. Every test led nowhere. Every treatment failed. It was as if the disease anticipated every countermeasure. Then she discovered something impossible. Someone had accessed her research files remotely and left behind a data packet. The intrusion had been so sophisticated that her security systems had not detected it until hours later. When she opened the packet, she found detailed genetic analysis of the pathogen, tracking data showing its spread patterns, and most incredibly, evidence of an organic structure in the shroud that matched the disease signature. Someone was helping her. Someone with technology far beyond the Confederation's capabilities. Keita spent 3 days verifying the data. Everything checked out. The information was accurate and incredibly detailed. But who could have gathered it? No Confederation mission had been sent to the shroud. No official research had produced this level of analysis. She ran a trace on the data packet's origin and found something that made her heart skip a beat. The encryption protocols were human. She had studied ancient records in her youth and remembered humanity's exile. The passionate species that had been cast out 70 years ago and supposedly perished in the void sectors. But humans were known for their technological adaptability. If any species could have survived out there, it would have been them. Keita made a decision that would change galactic history. She transmitted a message to the coordinates where the data packet had originated. I know what you are. I do not know why you are helping, but I need to meet with you. The Confederation needs to know the truth about this threat. Please respond. For 2 days there was silence. Then a response arrived on her personal terminal. Docking Bay 7. Midnight. Come alone. Keita arrived at the abandoned docking facility on the outskirts of Zenthos at the appointed time. The bay had been closed for years, its equipment rusted and its spaces dark. She walked through the shadows, her natural bioluminescence providing faint light. Then she saw it, a ship unlike anything in the Confederation fleet. It was sleek and angular, with no visible seams or external components. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A hatch opened and a figure emerged. The human woman wore a simple gray uniform with no insignia. Her expression was cautious but not hostile. Dr. Keita, I am Captain Elena Rodriguez. Thank you for coming. Keita stared at her. Humans still exist. After all these years, you survived. Rodriguez nodded. We survived. We adapted. And we have been watching over the Confederation ever since. The data we sent you is real. The threat is called the Devourers, and they are far more dangerous than you realize. Over the next hour, Rodriguez explained everything. The Silent Council, the decades of covert operations, the discovery of the Devourer hive. She shared data that would have taken Confederation scientists years to gather. She offered the help that humanity had been providing in secret for 70 years. Kata processed the information with her analytical mind. Why reveal yourselves now? You could have continued working in the shadows. Because the Devourers cannot be stopped by shadows. They require a united response. The Confederation has resources and numbers that we lack. We have knowledge and technology that you need. Together we might survive. Separately we will all be consumed. Kata made her decision. I will bring this to the Council. But I cannot guarantee how they will respond. Many will fear you. Some will accuse you of creating this threat yourselves. Rodriguez smiled sadly. We know. But we have to try. The galaxy is bigger than old grudges and past mistakes. Show them the data. Let them decide. 2 weeks later, Kata stood before the Galactic Confederation Assembly and presented evidence that humanity still existed. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some species demanded military action against the human settlements. Others called for immediate verification. A few, mostly younger delegates who had not witnessed the original exile, expressed curiosity rather than fear. Speaker Vorith, now ancient and speaking through a mechanical translator as his biological voice had failed, called for order. If humans exist, he said slowly, then we were wrong. We exiled them to die and they survived. That speaks to their resilience. The question now is whether they are truly offering help or seeking revenge. Kata played the recordings Rodriguez had provided. Images of the Devourer hive. Analysis of the pathogen. Data showing decades of human intervention that had prevented conflicts and saved lives. The evidence was overwhelming. The Confederation voted to send an official delegation to meet with human leadership. The vote was not unanimous, but it passed. 3 days later, a small diplomatic ship entered the void sectors following coordinates that Kata had been given. Admiral Nakamura stood in Haven's main docking bay as the Confederation delegation disembarked. There were 5 of them. Kata, 2 security officers, a diplomatic representative, and surprisingly, a very old being who moved with mechanical assistance. It took Nakamura a moment to recognize Speaker Vorith. The ancient leader approached slowly. His copper skin had darkened with age and his 6 arms trembled slightly. He looked at Nakamura for a long moment before speaking. I cast your people out 70 years ago. I believed it was necessary for the safety of the Confederation. I was wrong. Not about your passion or your intensity, but about what those qualities could become. You did not turn to revenge. You turned to service. Nakamura felt decades of bitterness and pain surface, but he pushed them down. We learned something in exile. Survival requires more than just existing. It requires purpose. Protecting this galaxy became our purpose, even after the galaxy rejected us. Vorith nodded slowly. Now we need that protection more than ever. Will you stand with us against this threat? The question hung in the air. The Confederation had exiled humanity to die. Now they were asking for help. Every human in the docking bay felt the weight of that irony. They could refuse. They could let the Confederation face the Devourers alone as punishment for past injustice. It would be understandable, even justified. But that was not who humans had become. Nakamura extended his hand in the old human gesture of agreement. We will stand with you. Not because we forget what happened, but because protecting life is more important than settling scores. Show us what you are willing to commit and we will match it. Over the following months, an unprecedented alliance formed. Human technology merged with Confederation resources. Dr. Volkov worked alongside Kata and teams of specialists from a dozen species. They developed a counter-pathogen, one that attacked the devourer biology without harming other life forms. It was not a perfect solution, but it could slow the infection and save millions. Captain Rodriguez trained Confederation military forces in unconventional warfare. The Silent Council's decades of experience operating in the shadows proved invaluable. Human stealth technology was shared, allowing Confederation ships to approach the Devourer hive undetected. The final assault came on a day that would be remembered as Unity Dawn. 300 Confederation ships and 100 human vessels surrounded the shroud. The combined fleet carried the counter-pathogen in massive dispersion devices. The plan was simple but dangerous. Penetrate the nebula, reach the hive, and deploy the weapon before the Devourers could respond. Admiral Nakamura commanded the human contingent from the Resilience, now upgraded with the best technology from both civilizations. Beside him on the bridge stood Speaker Vorith, who had insisted on being present despite his age. If this is to be the day our peoples reunite, he had said, then I will witness it. The fleet entered the shroud together. The Devourers detected them immediately and launched thousands of their smaller entities to attack. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Ships from both sides fell, consumed by biological weapons or torn apart by coordinated assaults. But the Alliance held. Human ships used their stealth technology to slip through the Devourer defenses. Confederation vessels provided covering fire with their superior numbers. Slowly, impossibly, they reached the hive itself. Dr. Volkov personally oversaw the deployment of the counter-pathogen. The massive organic structure shuddered as the weapon took effect. Its bioluminescence flickered and died. The smaller entities attacking the fleet suddenly became disoriented, their coordination lost. The Devourer hive was not destroyed, but it was crippled. It retreated deeper into the shroud, its threat neutralized for now. Medical teams deployed across affected worlds, administering treatments based on the counter-pathogen. Millions who would have died were saved. The cost had been high. 47 Confederation ships and 12 human vessels were lost in the battle. Over 8,000 lives were sacrificed to protect billions. But the Alliance had held, and the galaxy had witnessed what humans and the Confederation could accomplish together. 3 months after Unity Dawn, a ceremony was held aboard Haven Station. The Galactic Confederation officially rescinded humanity's exile and extended an invitation to rejoin the galactic community. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Nakamura stood before the assembled delegates with his senior officers beside him. He looked at the representatives of 47 species, many of whom had voted to exile humanity 70 years ago. Some looked ashamed. Others looked hopeful. All waited for his response. "We accept your invitation," Nakamura said quietly. "But with conditions. We will not abandon the void sectors or Haven Station. This is our home now, built with our hands and our determination. We will not dismantle the Silent Council. The galaxy still needs guardians and we will continue that work. And we demand equal representation in all matters, not as junior partners but as full members who have earned their place through 70 years of service." The Confederation agreed to every condition. Dr. Keita approached Nakamura after the ceremony. She carried a data pad containing a proposal. "My government wants to establish a joint research station. Confederation and human scientists working together on the next generation of medical technology. I have been asked to lead it. I would be honored if Dr. Volkov would serve as co-director." Nakamura smiled. "I think she would accept." Captain Rodriguez watched the celebrations from a quiet corner of the station. Young humans and Confederation citizens mingled freely, the old barriers beginning to break down. An elderly Zenthari approached her, moving slowly. "Thank you," he said simply. "For not letting our fear destroy you. For becoming better than we deserved." Rodriguez felt tears on her cheeks. "We had to become something," she replied. "Bitterness would have killed us. So we chose to become guardians instead." That night, Admiral Nakamura stood alone in his quarters looking at the stars. Humanity had been cast out, forgotten, and left to die. Instead, they had survived, adapted, and become the galaxy's silent protectors. They had transformed exile into purpose and rejection into strength. The galaxy would never forget humanity again. And humanity would never stop watching over those who needed protection, even those who had once cast them out. Because that was what made them human. The refusal to give up, the determination to survive, and the choice to serve something greater than themselves. The Silent Council would continue its work, now joined by allies from across the galaxy. The void sectors would remain a home for humanity and a symbol of what could be built from nothing. And the story of the species that had been exiled and returned would be told for generations as a reminder that strength came not from dominance but from the courage to help others even when they did not deserve it. The galaxy had tried to forget humanity. Instead, humanity had made itself unforgettable.